So has Polyphony just made Gran Turismo 7 great again? Well, I think they could have done. So this is a quick video, case in point, on how the smallest of changes to daily races and online interaction can absolutely wildly improve the daily races. So at the point of recording this, we're actually using last week's daily races as the example, but don't let that put you off. Please do stick around and watch the video because we have 3 tremendous races that we absolutely need to share. With that slightly different style to this video, I'm actually going to commentate over the top of this one, or at least do my best, so enjoy. Okay then, so kicking things off to start this video is our first race, and our first race of the stream, in fact. We are in the WRX. Now I did spend a little bit of time on my quali, put a little bit of practice in, so starting middle of the table in this fairly quick lobby is not too bad. It's a P7 start for us, and we're obviously going to try and work our way up the grid. Now, heading up into turn 1, we don't get the best exit compared to the guys in front, and certainly compared to Skeptic behind, who gets the launch and straight through. Now, we're not necessarily short shifting, but we're shifting pretty early as the car hits the end of the rev range. That seems to be the best for the WRX. Heading into turn 1, though, as we see, we get hit with a little bit of contact. We do survive, no damage, I don't think. Skipping forward a little bit because we're just going to try and pull out the highlights of this race, and there are many of them. And heading into the final sector of this lap, just look at this. You see people going 3-4 wide into the final turn. You know you're expecting a bit of carnage, and it all happens right in front of us. We end up actually clipping Nagy here in front of us twice. Totally accidental, but he gets himself into the pit lane. And I think my reaction on the stream pretty much said it all. So we're straight up into P4. We can see a lot of people heading very, very early into the pits. And this was a race of discovery, this first one, because we weren't sure how much life we were going to have left in the tyres as we make up yet another position. We've been gifted so far the podium. Now at this point, the plan was to just sit back and try and finish this race, but we do see Skeptic with a 1-second penalty, and so we spot an opportunity. He's going to serve that just a little bit further up the road here, and we actually did have, as we can see, a little bit of competition with Sam right behind us. So it's not going to be an easy P2 as we actually go side by side into the penultimate corner, and side by side once again coming out behind on the final corner. We then do have the better exit. Good racing with Sam there. Great racing, in fact. How we've managed to do that one side by side. And the racing continues straight up to turn 1. I'm trying to have a look to the inside, more or less just to try and put him off, but it doesn't work, and instead I only manage to put myself off. But this was just typical of the standard of racing that we had in these lobbies, which is not typical of Gran Turismo, and especially the daily races. Into the pits we go then, and we weren't sure how much life we'd actually have left on the mediums. It turns out that we definitely could have pitted so much earlier. You could pretty much pit lap 1 or 2 and you would be perfectly fine by the end of the race. But we do come out into, well, not the best spot, because then Mad D in front of us in the Cream Egg Beetle is going to manage to get the position. We're going to try and go for a bit of a switchback, or kind of just make sure we get a good exit. It doesn't quite happen, but we spot the yellow flags up ahead, so we know there's a bit of an opportunity, but we're going to pile into the back of P7 here. Ramstar also in the Beetle, a pretty popular car for this daily race. But we're now finding ourselves in a tricky spot as we get a little bit of contact here. We're starting to drive so close to these guys that we are going to end up losing time. So it's about just trying to keep it clean, maybe working with them if we need to, and trying our very best, as we see, still behind these guys here, trying our very best not to lose time. I started to try and think about, where is it worth taking the gamble? Where is it worth trying to just get the move done? And of course, into turn 2 here, or turn 3 as it's technically known, was ideal opportunity time for that one. We actually make up a place over on the right hand side, someone having spun, so we actually make up 2 positions. Skipping ourselves forward once again, we're going to be into the final corner, where we actually managed to get a tremendous exit and of course the slipstream from that Beetle is going to put us right on the back within a couple of tenths as we get up to turn 1. And maybe this was just enough. I promise there was no contact there, by the way. Maybe it's just enough to put Mad D off a little bit. And I was very thankful for this moment. One, because it meant in that very moment we were going to get the position. But look at this. It actually led to some of the best racing we've had in a little while here. I'm very conscious of the fact that he's going to try and get the switch back. I've still gone defensive, but it's actually been just enough to hold on. However, his better exit is going to put him back alongside for turn 4, where then side by side I have a little snap. I just manage to hold on to it somehow or another, managing to keep the power down in that WRX. But he is not going to leave us alone. He gets a much better exit out of turn 1, along with, of course, the slipstream, as we know. And here he is going to the outside. Tremendous racing once again. Going to set ourselves up for a great battle into turn 4. We make sure that we're not just going to run right across the apex and push him off. We keep that as tight as we can, but then of course it's going to mean he gets the better exit. We were never holding on to that there. Let's keep going. Great race this is. Great race this is. Safe to say, with racing like this, it doesn't really matter where you are on the grid. I'd actually happily be racing at the back if we were having battles like this. With that said though, I feel like this is a good chance to point out some of the differences in this race that maybe contributed to the great racing. For a start, it's a 15 lap race. I think normally when we have a daily race here, it's maybe 10, possibly 11 laps. I don't really recall a 15 lap race, and that just gives everyone a little bit more patience in the race, make better decisions, and ultimately lead to better racing. At this point though, a chance for a move was opening up, and we thought about having a look. We might look for this, yeah, we might look. I'm absolutely gonna look. We'll have a look. Of course we'll have a look. We've done it. We haven't done it. He's still alongside. Brake balance is going to go all the way at the rear here. Heading into the closing stages of this race then, and into the final third, heading on to lap 12. As we can see, we get a much better exit out of the final corner, and it's actually going to tempt us to go for a move to the inside. It absolutely does. We send it, but we also make sure that we give the space on the outside for Nagy, who is on the outside. He's going to tuck into our slipstream. Both of our exits compromised there, which was sort of the plan, but I hadn't accounted for Mad D also being super close. As you see him split down the middle there, he's going to try and go around the outside. All eyes on the radar there as it is all happening. Nagy not getting the best exit, but it is going to put Mad D alongside us there. He's going to be on the outside, and as we head down into turn 4, it's the last of the late breakers, and we're going to try our very best to not lose time here, because ideally you want to be on the far left side to really get a good swooping fluid racing line across. As we move a bit further forward onto the following lap, we actually catch up to Skeptic, who had clearly served himself a penalty. Now, we raced with him earlier in the race. He's obviously had a fantastic race up until that point there, and that penalty costing him quite a bit of time. We're going to try and slipstream him down the straight. I look to go to the inside, to right the way to the inside up against the pit wall. As we see, a little bit of contact there, nothing too bad, but it does look like I was attempting to pit maneuver him, which absolutely was not the plan. We're then alongside for the exit after turn 1, big run down to turn 2, or as we say, turn 3. And look at this, we've got 3 cars occupying the same piece of tarmac within less than half a tenth. It is Skeptic who looks to go for the switchback, but he actually just runs into the back of us there, moving or running out of road, and so we hold position. We start to see a few people going into the pits, heading into the final lap. We're actually going to get the jump, and we're going to end up on the podium. Yes, we do. We've got the podium. Get in. Podium secured then. It was only going to take one moment to ruin our race, and this was almost it. Mad Dog clearly outbraking himself, or missing his braking point altogether. Maybe he's put it on the grass, but as we can see, he's obviously accelerated to launch himself deliberately across the corner, I presume to avoid actually hitting us and making contact. Fair play to him there, but look at this. An opportunity presents itself potentially here for P2. We're going to sit in P3, which I'm very happy with, but as we get the final exit, he actually picks himself up a penalty. And how about that? We cross the line for a P2 finish, having started P7 in a fairly decent lobby. A prime example of just how good the daily races can be when Polyphony put a little bit of thought into them. Okay then, so rapid fire, we're going to get straight into race 2 because we've got a lot of racing to get through in this video. Now, in this race, we decided to have a look at the VW Beetle, a car that I absolutely used to love on GT Sport. When we moved over to GT7, I became not a fan of it because it was so much more difficult to drive, but maybe that says a lot about my lack of driving ability than the car itself. A couple of changes and a few updates, and I'm absolutely back in love with this car. We're going to head into turn 1. We brake where we need to brake, but we've given ourselves the opportunity to roll off the brakes if we need to and try and go for a move. A little bit of almost carnage out in front as the door very much closes in front of us here, and we're going to remain in P9, but we're going to be looking for a move potentially around the outside here, or we're certainly going to try and eye it up depending on the exit of these guys here. As we see, bad exit for one of the cars on the right, 2 cars going off to the left, and we managed to get ourselves up into P6. So we're off on the hard tyres, starting the race on the hard tyres, and P4 it is, heading up out of turn 1. We've got the podium right in front of us, but we know that we need to go into the pits. So I've gave it a miss at the end of the first lap, just in case we ran into any trouble going into the pits with everybody else trying. And speaking of trouble, we've got some here into turn 1. Down to P5 as we temporarily lose position to the Mitsubishi. And what a great car that is as well. We actually give that a go in the next race, so make sure you're staying tuned for that. We're going to try and open up the inside, but the space, the gap, the move was never really on. As Martin Brundle would say, a day late and $1 short on that one. So we head into the pits, end of lap 2. And we're going to actually try and run the rest of the race on the mediums, which was fairly easy to do now that we had the understanding of the tyre deg from race 1. So that absolutely helps us. As we head up into turn 1 then, trying my very best, first of all, to commentate on what is happening on the screen in front of me. I've now forgotten what happened in these races, but we can see that we've got Maximizer behind us there in the slipstream. He might be going for a move, but we're trying too much to focus on the cars in front as they're zigzagging their way around, crisscrossing down the straight and into turn 3. We're going to be right on the back. Once again, Nagy in front of us here, staying in the VW Beetle. We've joined him in the VW Beetle. Can we look for a move here? We absolutely do try and go for it, but he moves across. Now, that was a little bit late, but I don't think that it was anything too bad. He does then, as a result, however, trying too hard to defend in the short term, compromise his exit. We see a penalty for P5 up ahead, which is always good news. He closes the gap there, and as we head into the final sector, penultimate corner, we're right on the back of him. Heading down into turn 4 on the back of him still, and we're going to try our very best to have a look around the outside here. If you can just get the swoop, the fluid motion of that corner, then you can absolutely have the better and quicker exit. It doesn't quite happen for us in the moment, but we're going to try and go for a slightly wider run there. One, because we need to give the space to Maximizer beside us, and as we see, we try and do the same again. There's a tiny little bit of contact, and I do actually run wide. Now, this is just an example of absolute pure class from Maximizer behind us. We get a half-second penalty, which I absolutely expected. But as we come to serve the penalty, just take a look at what happens here. And I'm going to cut back to the actual live stream for my reaction. Oh, he served a penalty as well. Oh, no, he didn't. He served a penalty himself. Oh, that is... What a hero. what a hero. I'm highlighting that. That is absolutely fair play. What's he called there? Maximizer. What a hero. We sometimes do that as well. If we feel like someone's got a penalty that they haven't, that was undeserving, we will sit back and serve the penalty ourselves as well. Yeah, absolutely fair play to him. That is tremendous. We were trying to give him the space. It then kind of dropped me offline just a little bit. I messed up. He didn't actually have to hold back there. And I'm not going to defend this one too hard from him. And as we see, he eventually gets the move. We actually had a bit of a snap of oversteer, but I wasn't going to try and get that position back. Fair play to him there, and a shout out to Maximizer. Now then, we're right on the back of him. We're still going to continue having a tremendous race, but we're now starting to have a look at the guys up ahead. We're trying to work out where is our gap actually going to be. It's about a 20-ish second pit stop loss. So maybe it's not P1 that we would clear, but anybody behind him, we're thinking we might manage to grab the position. As into turn 3, we grab the position temporarily. Maximizer getting the better exit there, straight back. It was worth a look, it was worth a dive, but it was never going to happen. Couple of people into the pits then. Are we going to get the move on them? Well, we're going to skip forward right until the point where P4 comes out of the pits, or he slots into P4, and we think that we are now actually racing for the podium. We're obviously going to have a much higher speed as we're not picking up speed having came out of the pit lane, and we're going to look for the move. He's going to hold it there. I should have been in first gear. Second gear there just bogging me down a little bit trying to go to the inside. Now, you want an example of really good wheel-to-wheel battling? Here it is. Final sector, final 2 corners, side by side with Vulcan here. And we're going to be on the outside. We slot behind, but can we get ourselves a better exit? It's not quite going to happen. But that, my friends, is how 2 cars go side by side at the Red Bull Ring in the final sector. You don't see it often. Shout out there for epic, clean driving. And as we can see there, we finish the race in 5th. A great result, and actually the first non-A+ player on that grid, but not too shabby overall. A tremendous race, tremendous fun. And we're going to jump straight in to race number 3. Okay then, so let's get into this one and cue this one up. As we see, we're starting P13. So our run of good results, the couple of good results we've just had, boosted our DR and put us in a much, much higher lobby. Now, a couple of problems with this. The first of all being that we're trying the Mitsubishi Evo without much practice. Luckily enough, it is a great car. It was very comfortable, very stable, and easy to get used to pretty quickly. But where things are different here, we're starting P13, and we're going to have to desperately try and claw our way back up the grid. We sort of have a look for a move into turn 2, turn 3 there. It's not quite going to happen. Once again, racing with Nagy in the Beetle. He's been very loyal to that Beetle. Unlike us, we can very much struggle to pick a car sometimes on our streams. 2 guys going side by side there. Vulcan once again we're racing with, who we've just gave a shout out for the amazingly clean racing in the race before. We're going to try and go to the inside here. Now, there's a little bit of contact there. You can see very clearly it was not me that made the contact. Vulcan just outbraking himself a little bit. We've got someone else running wide on the right-hand side, and we're going to make 2 positions for this lap. Almost a snap of oversteer, which we managed to get rid of. We're going to jump straight into the pits early doors here, and we're going to go for a slightly different strategy. Our only hope in this lobby is to go for an almighty undercut. Now, these guys are so much quicker than me, or at least I believe that they would be side by side in a race, as we find out with Sam here making a tremendous move down into turn 1. Now, I didn't want to lose too much time battling, and that's why I went into the pits very early. I clearly forgot that strategy because straight down into turn 4 I fancy a battle with Sam. Anyways, we try and go to the inside. I'm just a little bit off the apex there, by the way, and so that was not great form from me, but we still managed to give more than enough space to Sam on the outside, and that leads us to have another great battle, or kind of a battle, into turn 5. Ultimately, Sam is going to have that one, and we're going to let him run way further up the grid as we do. Now we're going to skip way further ahead up to lap 12, because I promise you there was nothing much exciting happening except for this yellow flag there caused by someone going off on the left-hand side. We then see someone else spin it, and that puts us up to P9, but it was only at this point where things started to get a little bit interesting. When you're going for an undercut and you pit really early, it's actually a good thing that you have a pretty dull, boring race up until the last few laps, because look at this. As we've not battled, we've been fairly consistent in our timing. We see everybody going into the pits, and we actually managed to bag ourselves P5. So we've had two tremendous, really busy races, which we showed you in this race, and then this last one as a little bit of a bonus, just to show if you're struggling in the lobbies, sometimes that undercut works an absolute treat. And I think this is the point that I want to make about Gran Turismo and Polyphony and the daily races. You see that one small change, one small requirement, in this case was 2 different tyre compounds, and the pit stop was enough to really bring everybody in the lobby into play. We've got ourselves some really good results. We weren't far off race wins. We definitely bagged ourselves some good podiums. And in that case there, an A+ lobby, where if you just think about the strategy that's required against the requirements, that just really manages to mix up the grid regardless of qualifying, then we have ourselves some amazing races. The Red Bull Ring as well, of course, lends itself to great racing. It is a tremendous track, but it only can be done well when you've got some really good, clean racing drivers in your lobbies. And that is exactly what we've had in these races. Mix that in with the strategies required and the tyre requirements that Polyphony's put forward, and we've had ourselves a tremendous race. This is what we need more of in the daily races. I'm sure we can all agree. I just want to say a massive thank you if you stuck around to watch this video. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Please do hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and let me know any thoughts in the comments. In the meantime though, I will hopefully see you on a live stream, see you on track, or see you in the next video.